my name is Shannon.
I'm Alyssa.
Welcome back to B-Movie Bash.
Movie Bash. I don't know what that one was. That one was really weird. I'm sorry about that one.
It's that kind of a day, I think.
Get, like, there's pressure to come up with a new one every time.
Well,
so
you created that yourself.
I know. I don't know why I did that to me. I know me so much better than that.
Right?
So.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I'm taking the pressure off of you.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think,
okay.
anyone will care.
No.
Not that didn't sound good.
There's
no one will care.
There's only like 12 of you anyway, and one of them is me, so.
Right? One of them is me,
yeah.
so. Yeah.
So there's 10 of you.
No big deal.
If we're lucky.
Yeah. So what do we have today?
Today, we are talking about...
Wait. I think this needs backstory.
Yes. Okay. So, a few weeks ago, Shannon and I were at the store together, at the dollar store.
That's a big part of this.
And we discovered that they sell DVDs.
Yep.
So, I bought a whole stack of DVDs and brought them home. And I let my husband pick which one I was going to be reviewing today. So I handed him the whole stack, and he went through and read all of the backstories. And he was like, well, it's going to have to be this one. And he hands me House Shark.
Oh, no.
Yes. And I'm not a shark movie person.
Yes.
Okay. But the level of cheese that went into this movie.
Just no problem.
No problem
Yeah.
whatsoever. I mean, like I can handle Jaws and I can handle Deep Blue Sea because they're a little like hokey, yeah. And Deep Blue Sea, I highly doubt would ever actually happen, but like that one was really CGI-y and like whatever. Yeah. It was fine. I can handle that.
People have actually suggested that we watch that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I've seen it when I was like little.
Yeah.
Like my parents were watching it, so I also saw it.
Oh, okay.
But not like sat down and watched it.
That one's it's not terrible. It has its funny moments and it has its like, oh wow.
Doesn't it have like Ice Cube or like someone like that in it?
No, I can't remember who it is. Samuel Jackson's in it.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought of Ice Cube.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Ice-T?
Ice-T. There is another black guy in the movie, but I cannot remember his name for the life of me. I'll have to look that up. Okay. I can't remember who that is. Anyway, but this one, I got about like 5 minutes into the movie and I had to pause it because I was like, is this a comedy? So I had to go,
is this a joke?
Is this a joke? Yeah. So I went and I looked it up. And yes, it is an action-adventure comedy.
Okay.
And I had a lot more fun going into it thinking, like, okay, this is supposed to be funny.
But it's still bad?
It's still really bad.
Okay.
It's still really bad.
I mean, I guess we don't have to center around horror. We just tend to, so...
Yeah, well,
it's still a B-movie.
It's an action.
It's still at the fucking dollar store.
Yeah, it's a thriller, so...
Oh, boy. Like, can I see the cover? I can see part of it. Let me look at it.
Oh, I took screenshots.
Oh, jeez.
I've got pictures for you.
Okay, in case we don't get pictures up, or for the people listening, I just have to describe this to you, okay? So, House Shark, title, right? There's a sun glare in the title, which just, sets the tone, I think. And then there is a picture of a house, a nice little 2-story house.
Which is not the house in the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
like the yard and there's grass at the end of their driveway,
yes.
which is a nice touch. And then behind the house is a ginormous fucking shark head that could swallow said house.
Yes.
What,
you didn't even see, yes, you didn't even see the tagline on the front of the, okay,
show me.
The tagline of the movie, and this is like what really, like, I was like, no, this has to be a comedy, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna need a bigger house.
Like how, good job, but also how rude.
How rude, right?
Why would you do that?
The back.
Yes, please.
Says, just when you thought it was safe to go home.
Why?
Yep.
Should we read, the synopsis?
Yeah, I'll read it to you.
Since it's kind of a shorter plot
I'll read it
anyway.
to you, yeah. Okay. When Frank finds his happy home under attack by a dangerous but largely unknown breed of shark, he enlists the aid of the world's only house shark expert, Zachary, and a grizzled former real estate agent, Abraham, to embark on a desperate quest to destroy the beast and claim back his life. It's like Jaws, but in a house. Yeah.
Who thought of this?
It was Ron Bonk.
How dare you?
Yeah. His so the
Bonk?
funny thing,
His last name is Bonk.
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 Yes.
Okay.
Bonk. Yes.
Just gonna let
Well,
that
so
simmer for
when
a
I was
second.
looking this up, I was looking for more information about it and stuff. And apparently he had the idea when he was sitting at his house one day, and it was like, I guess, winter, because some ice fell down and broke on his roof, and it kind of startled him.
Sure.
And he was joking around with who was in the house with him of like, oh my gosh, that would be so funny if it was like zombies on your roof kind of a thing.
Okay.
And then he had the idea of like, oh man, what if it was like a zombie apocalypse, but only in your house? And then he thought, that seems a little silly. So what if it was a shark?
Zombies are a little too far-fetched. What about sharks in your house?
Yep.
That makes so much more sense.
Yep. So, but I'm like, I had like, going into it makes a lot more sense that it's a comedy. So it's,
But does it make it better?
Little bit, because I know they're not taking it as seriously.
I
Like
guess
they have these dumb little running jokes. Honestly, the acting is so bad.
Yeah.
But I love them.
Okay.
All. Like, it's
Okay.
so bad. My favorite character died really quickly though. So
Spoilers.
spoilers.
So
but
this
I mean,
is like a so bad it's good
yeah,
kind of a thing?
This
Okay.
is definitely one that you watch with a bunch of friends, a little drunk, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
because
Sounds like it.
but I mean, there's a couple of jokes in there that aren't my style of joke. I don't like the toilet humor as much.
yeah.
So like, there's not as many jokes for that, but there's a couple.
That's good, because I feel like cheap humor movies, like, they always go for, like, the fart jokes or, like, just the trashiest,
Yeah.
like, awful jokes.
This one
I
does
can't
have
even-
some of
I
that,
don't even-
but
I hate it.
but it does have a lot of like other just ridiculously random jokes, and like so many of them I couldn't even write down because I'd have to like give you the entire spiel of the context of what was going on
for it to make sense.
and like, but they just have these dumb little running jokes throughout the whole movie, and it's
Okay.
just kind of okay. So first things first, it is a comedy.
Yes.
And the opening credits start to play.
Hold on.
Okay,
Do you know when it came out?
2018.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and they say, but they say like faggot a lot. And I'm like, it's 2018. Why are you saying those words?
Yeah, that's not that long ago.
Excuse me, guys, but
We don't say that word.
Yeah.
Other people say that word.
so I'm just quoting them, but they say that a lot. Specifically, one character does. So like,
That's another thing that I hate is when they like throw in all the gay humor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not funny.
it's not no.
Who's laughing? Other people like that,
Yeah.
I guess. Maybe,
I don't know.
but,
I've
like,
heard a couple of gay jokes that like are funny in the like
I mean,
they're
sure,
funny,
but not like
but
faggot.
yeah.
I don't like saying that word.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's yucky. Don't say that word.
well, I didn't write that down in any of my notes, so we
Nice.
won't keep repeating that. But he says that a couple of times. So
Gotcha.
yes. So the very first thing we see is the opening music, and it's definitely the most generic shark. Dun dun, like a lot of that kind of stuff. It sounds like they were trying to remake the Jaws theme in a playground next to the swing sets, because
Oh.
there's a lot of like the harsh like metal scraping
Ew.
sounds, and like and it's so loud. I had to turn it down like 6 times.
Do they like
because
want you to think it's a horror movie?
I
Like,
I
is it,
think
like,
they just
that
wanted it to be
vibe?
like a thriller.
Okay.
And I
it's
was
this
like-
is scary.
Yeah,
Like, watch out.
but it's not.
Hold on to
Anyway.
your butts.
And the camera shakes a lot in this movie.
Oh.
So like, yes. So then we open to grass, and lots and lots and lots of grass. So
Great.
it's just kind of panning over grass, like the camera guy's running with the camera facing the grass.
I love that visual of just like,
Yeah. And then it pans up to a sign saying the Village of Liverpool, but they kept calling it Syracuse, New York. And so I don't know where the movie is.
okay.
I don't.
Isn't Liverpool? I mean, I'm sure we have one in America, but like that's England.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, is this going to be a British movie? It's not.
Okay, so
Yeah.
New York, I guess.
It's Syracuse, New York, apparently. So that's
Maybe Liverpool is like a borough,
maybe
a subset situation.
It said that welcome to the city or to the village of Liverpool. So
Okay,
I don't know. Anyway, so then we pan over I guess scene transition, but we pan over to probably one of the ugliest houses I've ever seen, and I'm really sorry if you live there.
If someone's so proud, they're like, my house was used in a movie, and you're like, this fucking shit ugly house.
it's
And it's not the house on the cover.
No, it's not.
And that Okay.
Yeah.
The house has nothing to do with any of that. Okay.
And that is a much nicer looking house.
I wonder if they, like, didn't use the house in the movie for the cover because they, like... Did you see the outside of the house? Oh, I was going to say maybe they couldn't, like, afford...
Okay. No, I'm pretty sure it's someone's house.
Okay.
Like, that or they, like, rented out a house because there wasn't any, like, real... decorations and furniture. Like, the son's room and the dad's room have beds. And the son's room looked way more decorated than the dad's room did. Yeah. But, like, it just... The rest of the house, there was nothing. I mean, you don't get to see the rest of the house till later.
Yeah.
So, like... But yeah, anyway.
Sorry.
You're okay. So, a man suddenly steps forward and he says, "Getting back on the dating horse, Theodore," as he's buttoning up his shirt. And his son, who, I'm really sorry, kid, you were adorable and not that bad of an actor, but he just, like, when he wasn't wearing his glasses, he was blinking like he was having a seizure. And I was like, "Are you that blind, sir? I'm really sorry. Please wear your glasses all the time." But he was okay. Like, I mean, he was a teenage actor. It turns out he's the writer's son.
Okay.
So I'm like, it's fine.
Course,
It's okay. You know, like, it's whatever. And this is supposed to be a comedy. It's ridiculous. But wear your glasses. So he tells him, "You look great, but do you really want to wear your sheriff's badge?" And the dad looks down, Frank is his name, looks down and he takes off his sheriff badge from his dress shirt because that would be on his dress shirt.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh."
Maybe he put it on and was like, "I'm going to show off a little bit." And then his son was like, "No, Dad."
But it's like the cheesiest sheriff badge, like, got it from the dollar
store.
Yeah, like, it's not plastic, I think.
It's like that shiny, like, you're not actually metal.
No,
who are you trying to fool?
Yeah, it was just bad.
Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, and so he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's just habit." So they show a screenshot of him, like, taking a selfie with his son, and then it just kind of, like, pans over the screen. Like, he posted it on a Facebook, but it's not Facebook. I think it's called MeBook, and it's just, yeah. This gag runs throughout the movie.
I love fake social media in movies. Can I just say that?
It's really
so
bad.
Great.
But he takes a photo of him and his son, and he's like, "Ready for a date night?" You know, and you're like, okay, whatever. But then it shows him holding his phone on some kind of dating app. And the picture of a woman is just like, "Oh, hi, I'm really pretty," and stuff. And he drops down the phone, and she's standing there in the doorway. And she's like 20 pounds heavier than the photo. She doesn't look like she's showered in days. And she's smoking. And she's like, "You must be Frank."
Great. You didn't file your paperwork.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was like, like about to barf the entire time, just like looking at her, like openly, right? And she's just like, "Let's go, lover." And he's like, okay. And he looks over and he sees the babysitter, which his son is like 15.
He doesn't need a babysitter.
He doesn't need a babysitter, but from some of the other context of the movie, I'm guessing he's really, like, afraid of a lot of things. So you only get to see him for the first, like, 15 minutes of the movie, and then he's gone for the rest of the movie.
All right.
But so the babysitter's there, and she's reading Moby Dick, and she's just like, "Okay, yeah, don't worry, like, have fun on your date. I'll watch him. He's fine." And Frank is like, "Okay, well, I'll be back by 10," and then looks over at the date, and she's like,
like, "I'll be back by 8.
And he goes, "Maybe 10:15." And I was like, what? I'm so confused, right? And so,
do you want it or not?
I like,
take what you can get, I guess.
Maybe not that. Anyway, but I was like so offended because she's like smoking in his house, and I was like,
rude.
I'd be like, "Bitch, get out!" Right?
Yeah, I don't want my house to smell like that.
Yeah, but then Theo kind of makes the comment of like, "Dad, isn't the guy supposed to pick up the girl?" And Frank was like, "I don't even know anymore, son." So he goes to leave, and she starts making the kissy face at him, and he full blown puts his whole hand over her face to push her out the door, and her mouth is like kind of between some of his fingers, and she starts doing the tongue thing, and he's just like, like pushing her out the door.
After that, first of all, if it was me as the woman, I'd be like, "Fuck you, dude.
Yeah,
bye." Second of all, if I was the dude, I would just push her out the door and then close
the door,
and then have a night in with my kid.
Yeah. That's not someone I would go on a date with.
No, not my type.
That's Frank for you.
Yeah,
so
Desperate man.
Yeah, so he leaves, and the babysitter, after a little while, is putting Theo to bed, right? And so he's all cuddled up in bed and stuff, and she's like, okay, buddy, have a good night. And he's like, yeah, will you actually leave the door open a little? And she's like, aren't you a little old for that? And he was like, well, a little bit, but just please. And she's like, okay. And then she goes to, like, turn off his light, and he goes, oh, and will you leave my dad's light on in his bedroom? Because it's, like, across the hall. And she's like, come on, bud, you're too old for that kind of stuff, right? Like, he's definitely a teenager, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 13, but he's older.
Is
like,
his babysitter like a 17-year-old that he goes to school with?
she looks like she's 21.
Oh, okay.
But she's reading Moby Dick, and I really don't know of many college courses that make you read Moby Dick. Anyway.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know. So, her hair was actually kind of cute. So,
that's good.
They did a good job with her hair. And so, she was like, well, what's the matter? Why do you want the lights on? And he goes, well, I just keep hearing, like, voices in my, like, walls. And she's like,
what?
She's like, oh, that's just the hockey mask wielding axe murderer that's hiding under your bed. And he's like, what? And like dives under the bed to see, and obviously there's nothing there. And she's like, I'm just kidding, bud. You're okay. And he's like, all right. And so she goes and like shuts off his light, but then turns on the dad's light in his bedroom. But as she goes to turn away, we see a shark fin pass over the over the camera screen. And she turns back and looks, but there's nothing there. And so she goes to walk away. But as she's walking away, there's like a shadow of a shark face like on the door.
No.
And it really looks like it's like cardboard cutout of like a shark.
toy.
Yeah, it's bad. Anyway, so she goes downstairs and she starts getting spooked because she keeps hearing like noises in the pipes and stuff. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're letting a little kid scare you for no reason. So she goes and puts on a scary movie to like,
of course,
yeah,
to calm her down.
and I'm pretty sure, like, I went and I looked it up. It's another one of Ron Bonk's movies.
Wow.
And I'm like, I mean, I guess if you own the rights to it.
Nice
then,
plug, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then she starts feeling sick, so she goes to the bathroom. And, like every woman does, gets completely naked.
Ah.
Yes. To use the toilet. So, you know, that's...
I mean, but really though, right?
really,
Like,
yeah.
that's what we do.
Yeah, because, I mean, she's wearing a separate skirt and a separate top. So, of course, you have to be completely naked.
Couldn't they have at least put her in a jumpsuit so it made sense?
Right, no, they didn't. It just...
I love being naked when I go to the bathroom.
Yeah, and so she sits down with a book, which is like Moby Dick for dummies, because I guess she's like struggling to read Moby Dick. Sitting there on the toilet and complaining about period gas. And
Lovely.
yeah, and then the shark comes up through the toilet to attack her and starts like apparently pulling her in by her butt, I guess.
Okay.
Like, but you like full blown see like it just pans up and there's butt.
Oh, good.
And yeah, that's fine.
I love that, like, that a couple of episodes ago in Pledge Night, we had the hand come up through the pipes, and we're like, that's not possible.
Yeah.
And this movie's like, just wait a minute.
This is a shark.
Let me just show you.
Yeah.
How? Okay. Suspend your disbelief, I guess.
Right. And I'm guessing at the same time, this is when Frank comes home, right? Because, okay. This is where I sent you that message where I said that I love you
Yeah.
a lot to watch this movie.
Yeah.
So they pull up to the house and Frank gets out of the car and the date starts honking and she was like, thanks for the date, Frank. Your tongue is legendary. And he turns around and his whole, like, around his mouth is covered in pubes.
No.
Yes.
No.
And...
Oh, cringe. Ew.
But the whole time he's like, oh yeah. And I'm like,
wash your damn face.
Okay, but why did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you thought she was that gross, why did you do that?
Desperate
Like, I can
times.
totally get, I can get being desperate enough to just have sex with that. But like, why would you go down on that?
I thought you were gonna say lipstick.
No.
So I was really just
Yeah.
like, I think I'm crying a little bit.
it was pubes. So.
Okay.
And he's like, but the worst is the sound effects. So he starts like wiping it off and it does like,
Ew.
and I'm like, oh, stop it. Okay. And that's just some of the toilet humor. The whole movie's not that, but that's just some of the really gross toilet humor that I was like, I can't do this. I just, yeah. So he, he goes inside and starts like looking around for the babysitter, and he doesn't see her, and he's like, what the heck? Well, Theo suddenly like grabs his shoulder because he's coming down the stairs. It startles him, and he's like, Theo, what are you doing awake? And he's like, I thought I heard something. And then they hear the babysitter screaming in the bathroom, right? So Frank runs in, and I'm really glad that they didn't let the son go in there because she's fully nude on the toilet, right?
As
and
you
so
do, yeah.
So luckily, I'm really glad they didn't do that, because they do that in movies sometimes, and I'm not okay with having children see naked people. So he goes in there, and she's sitting on the toilet and like looks up at him and starts screaming for help, putting out her hands, right? Because she can't get off the toilet because the shark's got her.
Sure.
And so Frank freaks out, runs over, tries to grab her, but because her hands are so bloody, he slips right off and falls back, right? And then she just like gets sucked into the toilet.
What the fuck?
I don't know.
Like, yes, sure, it's a comedy. It's supposed to be poking fun at itself, but like, what?
I don't know. But then the whole like bathroom was like covered in blood, and they have like ribbons of flesh, I guess, like hanging off the edge of the tub. It's really gross.
Okay.
Then the son comes running in, and he's like, Dad, what happened?
Oh boy.
And Frank is like, I have no fucking idea. But then he looks over at the toilet, and there's a fin sitting out of the it's what's on the back of the
It's bad.
It's that.
Okay, let me see.
But this is a much higher resolution photo than the movie.
Yeah, it really just looks like fake intestines.
Yeah.
Hanging out of the toilet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and blood in a fin.
Yep.
Oh, and there's her with her bloody hands.
Yep. Yep. So that happens. And then the toilet also just kind of like gurgles up a bunch of blood, and they freak out and go running out of the room, which
cool.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
We see 2 months later across the screen and a for sale sign in front of the house.
No fucking shit.
Right?
Yeah.
And the realtor comes up and he puts a sign on that says alarmingly low now, like because they're trying to sell it for as cheap as possible,
sale.
right? And we see in the back of the house, Frank and Theo are sleeping in a tent. And when I say tent, I'm like pretty sure that it's like a tarp or 2 oversized garbage bags.
Oh.
Because
it's like, here's a stick in the middle with it draped over type of a tent.
Yes.
Nice.
And they're both sleeping in this like little, it's barely big enough for like one person, but they're both sleeping in it. And Frank gets up and he starts getting ready for the day, like brushing his teeth using the hose and stuff, and like I don't know. But then he cooks up a can of beans on the grill because he can't go in the house.
Yeah, that's what you eat when you're camping out in your backyard.
Yes. And so he gives a plate to Theo, and they sit down for breakfast, and this scene goes on so long. Like almost a minute long.
Why do they focus on the stupid stuff and then like zoom right through everything that's interesting?
I don't know. This scene just went on so fucking long of like Frank rubbing his neck and Theo copying him, or Frank touching his face and Theo copying him, or picking his nose and Theo copying him, and it just goes on so fucking long.
Like, we get what you want us to know.
Yeah, and then he wants to be like his dad. Okay, cool, we get it, right? But then Frank notices that he's doing that and gives him one of those kind of smiles, like, and then out of nowhere grabs him by the shirt and goes, "What the hell, kid? Can't you see I'm going through hell here?"
What the fuck?
Yeah. And Theo's like, "Dad, calm down. Take a chill pill." And Frank is like, "I'm sorry, son. I'm just really going through hell right now." And I'm like,
That's
apparently.
what I hear.
Yeah. Like, okay.
Jeez.
And then he's like, "You haven't eaten your beans." And Theo's like, "Beans for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I just don't think I can do it anymore, Dad. Maybe I'll go stay with Mom for a couple of days."
Oof.
But apparently she was coming to pick him up anyway.
Can't you just go get like $1 menu McDonald's for breakfast like a normal family?
Apparently not, because Frank says that money is really tight right now. So because he doesn't work, you see. And
I thought he was a sheriff.
not anymore. I forgot to mention that. Sorry, he's not a sheriff anymore.
In the 2-month span.
No, just I think he quit before then.
And he was gonna wear his sheriff badge on a date. Wasn't that like
it was
revoked?
habit. I don't know. I know you'd think that they would take that away. You'd think they'd also take away his like issued gun, but whatever. He still has that.
Good.
So they were tells him sorry that like money's been a little tight, and he hands him his phone and he goes, "Hey, why don't you watch your Pubuscus and Toby Pie?" And Theo goes, "You're such a dork, Dad." And I was
Can we just I just need to comment on the fact that they're referencing Tobuscus.
Yeah.
And I literally sent you
Yeah.
that Tobuscus reference.
I thought that was
today.
so funny when you sent me that.
Like, what, an hour ago,
Yeah.
maybe? That's hilarious.
Yep. Anyway, I still
Toby
love
Pie.
Tobuscus.
That's great. He's great.
Yes. But it's just like Pewbuscus and Toby Pot is so, yeah.
Also, I get that they're mashing up the names, but Pewbuscus
Is the worst
sounds
thing.
awful.
Yeah. It was awful. I was like, what
Didn't
was
we
he saying
pick
at
two
first?
different other YouTubers to mesh? Or
I don't-
just make up... okay, sorry.
I don't know. Anyway,
Pewbuscus.
so they hear a knock on the fence and the mom comes in. And now there's a lot of characters in this movie. Okay, there's
Okay.
Frank, there's Theodore. I think Betsy was the
Babysitter.
babysitter. There's Zachary and Abraham because I already kind of read their names. There's John and Dolly's kind of a weird name, but Dolly is, there's George the realtor. Okay,
Okay.
and then there's Frank's ex-wife, Lady Bird.
No.
Yes, her name is Lady Bird.
No.
Yeah. And I when he first said that, I was like, is that a nickname? Like,
And, I don't like when movies use all common names.
Uh-huh.
Like, when we had, a John and a Mary and stuff. I'm like, okay, get creative.
Yep.
But, Lady Bird is a step too far.
yeah. I was like, you couldn't have gone with any other name
Anything
in
else.
the world.
Remember Butterfly. I don't know.
Yep.
Why?
But Lady Bird.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe she's named after Lady Bird Johnson.
Maybe. I don't know, but I was like, all right then. So she starts getting all huffy at him and tells Theo to go wait in the car. And she's chewing Frank out for letting Theo sleep in a tent. She's like, winter's coming. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You can't be sleeping in a tent. And Frank goes, I don't know. Maybe I'll just build an igloo or something. And she's like, he's dives into the tent at this point because he just doesn't want to really talk to her. So she's sitting outside the tent talking to him. He's like, maybe I'll just build an igloo. And she's like, an igloo, Frank? And he's like, yeah, if it's good enough for the Chinese, it's good enough for me. And I was like, that's not
What?
right. Yeah.
No.
But that's what he says.
Also, that's why he's trying to sell the house.
Yeah.
Bitch.
Right. Well, but so he wanted to sell the house originally, but then decided that he couldn't do that to anybody else.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So,
Can you sell it to a bank and they can condemn it?
no, the bank is already threatening to take it away if he doesn't sell the house.
Take it. Oh
And
my
I was like, yeah,
gosh.
you have it, right? But the real estate agent is the realty company is upset because if the bank takes it, they don't make any money.
Right. I guess that's true.
And I was like,
Too
okay.
bad.
And they all think that Frank's crazy, because
Well, yeah.
of course there's not a monster in the house because the police came and searched it and there was no monster in the house. So, And I'm like, no, they would have arrested him.
Yeah.
Frank would be in jail.
At least until proven innocent.
Yeah.
That's
He should be in jail.
a crime scene.
But so she's going off, Lady Bird's going off about how she's like, well, you need to figure out something where Theo can actually sleep or I'm going to take you to court and sue for full custody. And Frank just starts sobbing in the tent, right? But the fakest sobbing. And she was like, come on, Frank, can you blame me though?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, Lady Bird,
Absolutely
I cannot
not.
blame you.
No.
No. Lady Bird tells him that he just needs to sell the house and find a job. And that'll work.
No big
It's
deal.
okay, And he comes out and his face is covered in green snot.
Ew.
And the first part of this movie is not fantastic. So green snot and telling her that he just can't sell the house. He wants to burn it down because there's a monster living inside. She's like, come on, Frank, there's nothing in the house. And he gets up and starts looking at the house. He's like, I know there's something in there. I know it's watching me and dressing me with its eyes and it has a penis and boobs or tits and stuff. And
What?
And some kind of she-male that you get into your house and you think, hey, why would I waste the first boner I've had in months? And
What?
I
is
don't know. He goes
happening?
off on this entire long spiel. I only got half of it. That's.
I wonder when people think he's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't
I
understand.
have no idea. He seems like a perfectly rational guy.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah. And I was, that entire, that right there, I was like, I see why you left him, Lady Bird.
Yeah.
I see why you left him.
I get it. How did you not get custody in the first place?
Right? And so she was like, Frank, come on. And he's like, well, still though, She's like, no, whatever. And she's like, you need to get your life figured out or you're going to lose your son. And once more she walks away. And once more we see another screenshot from Me Book of Frank and Theo and the tent in the background and stuff. And it says, the caption says visit from the ex-biatch. hashtag like married life.
Hashtag defamation of character. That's nice, buddy.
Right? Anyway, so the scene changes to a large gray building, and we see the office of the realtor, and this is probably one of my favorite-ish moments of the movie. It goes on for a very long time, too, but George is trying to explain to his boss that Frank won't let anyone into the house to see it, and he can't sell the house if nobody will come and see it.
Yeah.
Not today's market. They would hear, oh, there's a shark in the house. We'll fucking deal with it.
Yeah. Give me a harpoon, snatch that shit up.
Right?
We're done.
We're done.
Give me a house.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, the big boss man is angry because the bank is about to foreclose on it and they'll lose the money on the house and yada, yada, yada. And he goes into a very long rant about his grandfather or great-grandfather, whoever it is, came over to America for one reason, to become a realtor. And I was like, I didn't think that was a thing.
That's the American dream for you?
Oh.
Okay.
So he walks over to a stuffed grandfather.
What? wait.
A taxidermied grandfather.
A human?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the poor actor is set up like a bear. Okay, he's got his hands up like claws.
Dear old
and
grandpa.
his mouth all the way open.
And it's a real person?
It's a real person. So it's an actor like standing there all dressed up, looking like a bear. And like you see his eyes moving and he's like ever so slightly moving, but he's trying really hard to stay still.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, this is amazing. Like,
what? Wow.
Yep.
I have no words for that.
Yeah. And so the boss is just going on for a good minute of like, these are our closing. I don't understand. I just bought a house and I don't understand realty. So he's just going off for a while. Anyway, he slaps George and is just like, now you sell that house or else, kind of a thing. And George is like, okay. And goes to crawl out and the boss goes, now get your sweet ass out of here. And I was like, well, this
So
is...
assault and sexual harassment.
Yeah. I'm like,
okay.
But then, so the funny thing is, I didn't write it down originally, but it was funny later on. But he goes and he sits down and he just kind of starts, like, it's really dark in the room too. He just has like one lamp.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs, they're playing. But he just has this like one lamp glowing and it's really kind of it's really kind of dark and ominous. And he gets on the his little speakerphone intercom thingy and he's like, Nancy, and she's like, yes, Mr. So-and-so. Like,
of course.
You know? And he's like, I never caught his name. And he was like, will you call the electrician about these damn lights? And she's like, yes, sir. and then starts like maniacally laughing that he's gonna finally sell this house that I'm sure is gonna sell for like $200,000 less than it's worth.
Oh yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's a $200,000 house. So like,
so yeah.
nothing. Here's the house. Take it. Anyway, so now Frank is in the library and he's online and he's trying to find anything similar to what has happened in his house before. And he finds out that there was this parade of homes where a bunch of people were massacred in the house too. And some people were saying that it was a freak like pipe accident. Like there was suction in the pipes or something. I don't fucking know, but like it's ridiculous. Anyway, but one website he was on is insistent that it was a shark attack, like that it was a shark attacking people, and that it's a new breed of sharks, and there's only one world expert of this shark, right?
Right.
Yes,
there has to be one.
So he prints off a bunch of the information and he goes home. And he goes home later to see that George has the door open and he's showing the house to this couple. And the guy's name is John and the girl's name is Dolly. And they have the cutest English bulldog.
Oh.
Her name is Checkers. And they're just like walking around the house with her. And I'm just like, oh,
that's adorable.
Because I have an English bulldog and I was just like, oh, she's so precious.
Why would you bring a dog to a house showing?
I don't know.
Like, that's kind of rude.
That's rude.
What if they pee in there because
Right?
it smells different? What if they get hair all over the place? Come on.
And English bulldogs will get hair everywhere.
Yeah.
I know.
Slobber.
Yep. There's no way I could ever commit a murder now because of that dog.
Yep.
So, not that I shed enough anyway, but like,
yeah,
he sheds. Anyway, so Frank runs kind of inside, but he only puts one foot in and then, like, freaks out and pulls his foot back out. And he's like, you need to get out of the house right this second. And George is like, listen, Frank, we need to sell the house and blah, blah, blah. And is, like, trying to push him out. Is trying to shut the door while telling the couple to just kind of go explore the rest of the house. And they're like, what the
It's
fuck?
fine. Everything's fine.
But Frank is like, you're gonna die in there and stuff. They're just like, right, okay. So they walk
Great.
upstairs because obviously I would
Yeah.
think he was crazy.
There's a shark in the pipes.
Yeah.
Okay, dude.
Right.
Cool.
Anyway, so Frank and George go outside, and Frank is trying to explain to George that he figured out what it is in the house and that it's a house shark, and pulls out the papers and shoves them in George's face. And when I mean shoves them in his face, the papers are touching his nose.
Yeah.
And is like, this is what I'm talking about. And George is like, what is this? Like, what am I looking at?
Anything but paper.
And so Frank just goes on explaining about that it's a house shark and yada yada and the parade of homes and blah blah blah. And then George is like, this is ridiculous. And then they start fighting like schoolgirls where they just kind of like grab each other's shirts and just like, you know, it's ridiculous. Shake each other. Yeah. So that's what they're doing. They're fighting. Well, the couple inside, John and Dolly, are wandering around the house, and they look like they're supposed to be kind of gothy metalheads, okay? Like, she's got the shortcut hair, she's got nose piercings and stuff. She's wearing, like, a pink dress, which is actually really cute, but she sounds like a valley girl. And she's like, well, it's kind of a fixer-upper, but I really think I like it. Like,
That's not the vibe.
it was so bad. And the guy is wearing the most ridiculous, like, long wig. Like, it's probably longer than my hair wig. And he's like, totally, I love this house. And I was like, what the fuck is happening here?
So are you California surfers, or are you goth, what are you?
I have no idea.
Nothing,
and I'm
you
like,
can be both, I
yeah,
guess.
but, like,
Pick a vibe.
pick a vibe. Anyway, so he was like, well, I could totally see us getting this house, and I just want to have sex with you in the living room. So they just start making out, right? And he sticks his hand up the back of her dress and starts, like, I guess, fingering her butt. Yeah, so anyway, so we see that the shark is watching them, and we know it's the shark watching them because it's a blue filter, and
sharks only see in blue.
apparently,
as
yes,
we know.
yes, and so it's like panning around, the shark's just kind of watching them and stuff. And the whole time, Dolly is like, John, stop it. Wait, where's Checkers? Checkers! Like, and I just laughed really hard at her being like, Checkers! Like,
Oh.
it was really dumb. Anyway, so then she hears something behind her, and she's like, John, stop. I really don't want somebody to catch us with your finger up my
Like the
butt.
realtor who is right outside the door.
Yeah, and apparently she's not wearing any underwear because he's just, like, up in there. Anyway,
Sure.
yeah. Anyway, so suddenly from outside, as Frank and George are tussling around, we hear screaming, and John is thrown against the window, like, yelling and screaming, and then gets yanked away. So Frank and George come running up to the window and look inside, and apparently both of them see the shark eating John and Dolly, right? And
We don't
sadly,
get to see that?
we don't get to see that.
Oh, man.
No, I know. Sadly, we luckily don't get to see Checkers being eaten, but Checkers obviously got eaten. So
Aw.
I know, I was like, stop killing the dog. But I mean, of course the dog's gonna get eaten, right? So later they're at the police station, and George is having like a complete mental breakdown, like leaning against a police officer, and the police officer is like trying to put his gun in his hand, and he's like, look, it's a real police officer's gun. Yeah, take it. Now you're like a real officer. And I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Like, I get the intent, but with your gun, sir?
Oh, God, yeah. And George is just like sobbing, and Frank is like, oh man, what do we do? What do we do? And Ladybird shows up, and she's like, Frank, what's going on? And he's like, a couple was killed in my house. And she was like, what? And he's like, by some monster. And she's like, wow, you were right, Frank. You were right all along. And then tells him that he needs to take care of this, Frank. You need to take care of it. And then gives him a kiss on the cheek and then leaves. And Frank was like, oh, she's gone. So I was like, that's
weird
her.
dynamic.
Yeah, I know.
Your ex-biatch.
Yeah, that
Okay.
you called a biatch and then wanted to... I don't fucking know, man.
Okay.
Anyway. Then Frank grabs George and tells him that they need to do something and that they're going to call the expert, right? Or the shark expert that he found, right?
Right.
So George kind of goes off for a little while about how he's like, Frank, I had 3 other families I was supposed to show that house to. One of them had kids, and they weren't ugly kids. They were cute kids. I saw pictures of them.
That sounds like something you would say.
Right? And Frank is like, none of that matters now, George. And he was like, what? And he's like, because they're not in the house, right? You're not going to show anyone else the house. And George is like, no, I'm not gonna. And he's like, okay.
Now you know.
Yeah, so anyway, so then Frank leaves and is like, I'm going to go call the shark expert. And George is like, I'm going to go tell my boss what's going on. And Frank is standing outside in the pouring rain, staring up at the house. And we just kind of see the shark apparently swimming through the house because it's, just the blue filter. Anyway, Frank pulls his phone up and goes, get me Zachary Taylor. And I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we see the exact moment of him, like, on the phone, screenshot, passing over on his Me Book, and it says, I'm gonna bring the boom on the shark house.
What?
I have no idea. So now we have a diner, and a waitress is refilling a man's coffee cup, and the man is reading a newspaper that says real estate sales are very, very low. And then on the next page, he flips it over, and there is a shirtless picture of Frank. And the article saying, local idiot claims shark is in the house, and he spits his coffee all over the...
Great Scott!
Yeah. All over the page. But then we're back at the realtor's office, and George is telling the boss that there really is a shark in the house. And he's like, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And the boss is like, oh, well, we're really going to have to take care of this. I'm going to send my best inspector to handle this.
They're not trained for that.
Darth Squanto is, though.
What?
Darth Squanto. So Darth Squanto stands up from behind him wearing a hooded cloak, and he pulls it off, and he's Native American, and he's my favorite character. So spoiler alert.
Okay. Oh, and he dies. Oh no. Everyone dies.
Everyone died. So George is extremely intimidated because he apparently knows who this is, right?
He's famous.
He's famous. Yes.
Infamous.
Infamous. And so back at the house, George shows up, and Frank is like, oh, George, I called the shark expert. And he's like, well, my boss has already brought in his own expert. And he's like, what? Who? And he's like, Darth Squanto. And he looks over, and there's no one standing there. And then they turn back, and Darth Squanto is staring at the house, just in a different spot. And he was like, oh, what the heck? And Frank goes, a Native American? What? What is happening here, right? And he's like, what can you do? And Darth Squanto replies, don't underestimate my powers, and then force bitch slaps him across the yard.
What is happening? This is a fever dream made into a movie.
Yeah, this whole section of the movie, I was like, what the fuck is happening? And then later, I feel like multiple people, were writing their own chapters of what they thought should happen next.
Fun.
But it was their own, it was the one.
And then Darth Squanto shows up and uses the Force.
And he's straight up just, force choking him and stuff. It's great.
Maybe it was an improv skit that they turned into a movie.
Maybe.
But it's... all right, we have a house. What's in the house?
Yep.
Sharks. Sharks. Great. Okay. And then who's going to fight the sharks? Darth Squanto.
Yep.
Perfect.
Anyway, so they're force gripping him and stuff. And George is like, put him down, Squanto. And he's like, okay, and lets him go. And so then Frank is like, I just don't get the connection between house sharks and Native Americans.
Nope.
And Darth Squanto explains that his people used to hunt land sharks and that they would wear their skin and stuff. But because they were being hunted so much, the sharks decided, like the dolphins, to migrate into the ocean.
Of course.
Except some of them stayed on land. And I was like, with this, it doesn't make sense later on with the rest of the movie. I just realized that. I just put 2 and 2 together.
Okay.
So anyway, so he explains that he can kill it because his people used to do that all the time. And so he can, right?
Right.
And Frank is like, all right, let's kill us some mother truckin' house shark. And he says truckin'.
Oh.
He said, let's kill us
What
some.
is this rated?
It's not rated.
Oh, it's that bad.
But they do, yeah, they say a lot of shit.
Mother
truckin' house shark. So outside, Squanto is preparing to fight, and he's gearing up and stuff. When they see these kids on bikes pull up to the house, okay, and this little girl gets off the bike and just kind of stands defiantly at him, and Frank walks over and is like, who the hell are you? And the little girl is like, are you Frank? And he's like, yeah. And so she kicks him in the nuts, and he's on the ground sobbing, and he's like, what the hell? And she was like, John and Dolly were my parents. And he was like, wait, I thought they didn't have kids.
What?
And they were the couple that got eaten in the house,
Yeah.
right? And he was like, I thought they didn't have kids. And she was like, they didn't. They were going to adopt me. And now I'm going back to a high kill shelter.
What? What?
Yeah, but she's like,
That's
nice.
nice.
I'm being sent to a high kill adoption center. Yep. Anyway, she kicks him again, gets on her bike and rides off. And George comes over and and she was like, and you didn't do enough to help them, kind of a thing.
Uh-huh.
And yeah. Anyway, so George comes over and he's like, don't listen to her, Frank. She's wrong. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? And Frank is like, I know she's wrong. I've done everything I can. And then Squanto's like, anyway, let's go in the house and kill this shark, right? So he goes in, goes on for a minute about like, it's time to kill this fish. Mammal. Aquatic devil. And then goes inside.
Aquatic devil.
And he turns around and he's like, I will kill the shark quickly. And then the shark suddenly appears behind Squanto and eats him.
Oh.
And so Squanto's like dead and like sprays blood over George and Frank
Of
and
course.
stuff.
That's how blood works.
And then the shark closes the door.
At least it has manners.
Yeah.
How nice.
Right? And then another screenshot is of Frank getting a tattoo of Squanto on his back.
In
Like this
memory.
full... And the caption says, lost a good friend today, with a bunch of frowny faces.
What?
And at this point, I'm kind of starting to like the movie. Because I'm like, what the fuck is happening? But like, they keep having little moments of that. Like, he barely knows these people, and he's just posting screenshots of like hanging with the besties. And,
Yeah.
Like, it's anyway. So the boss of the realtor's office is really angry that he lost his best home inspector. When we hear a man behind him start talking and stuff, so he turns around and finds out that it is Abraham, and Abraham looks like if Mose from The Office had a baby with Dwight from The Office, and that baby was raised by Jim Carrey in the South.
Wow. That's an image.
Yes. So he's got the full-blown, like, weirdo Amish beard
Okay.
that they actually did a really good job with. But he's dressed in, like, the mustard yellow shirt with the brown jacket.
Okay.
But he talks the way Jim Carrey talks a lot.
He's like the Grinch
Yeah.
in a suit.
It is. It's really bad. And he goes on these weird random spiels throughout the whole movie. So he's honestly where huge chunks of the movie I was just able to like take out.
Skip over.
So he kind of just starts going off about how he's like, I'm the best you've got and I'm the one that can deal with this and stuff. And the boss is like, well, I don't know, are your stitches healed? And he was like, well, they could use a little tightening. And I'm like,
What?
I have no idea. Obviously, they're going to tell you later kind of a thing. But like, anyway. And he's like, we need to act fast to bring your sales back up. Yeah. And I had to turn on subtitles to understand what he was saying.
What the fuck?
Quite a few times the subtitle says mumbles.
Oh no. I think
Because
when it's
they
like
can-
incoherent.
Yeah.
You're like, I know.
I'm like, that's what you are for. But yeah, no, they didn't even know what he was talking about. Anyway, so he's like, there's way too much nonsense going on. But Abraham finally convinces him he's the best person in the job. And the boss is like, okay, you can go do what you're going to do. And lets Abraham go. And then starts sitting in the dark, maniacally laughing again, right? And then all of a sudden the lights turn on. And he's like, oh, what the hell? And Nancy, his secretary, comes over the radio. And she's like, the lights are fixed, sir. And he's like, oh. Like, all sad.
I'm not a dark, sinister, evil person anymore. Just turn your damn lights off, I
Yeah,
guess.
and I laughed a little harder at that than I should have, probably. But
I love that his secretary is like the quintessential, like 1 moment, please.
yeah.
Like, okay.
It was really good. So anyway, so we're back at the house, and Frank is asleep in his tent, and a man comes in wearing a lederhosen, and
Okay.
yep, and he goes over and he wakes Frank up, and Frank is like, I'm not showing the house, and he's like, he's not here for the house.
Oh no.
And he's like, oh, you must be the hooker I ordered.
What?
And he's like looking at him as he's undoing his belt.
Oh.
And-
did you order a male hooker?
I
Sir?
don't know. And he's
I mean,
like,
no
damn,
shade.
your accent is sexy. And the German guy replies like, I'm not the hooker. And he's like, he explains that he's the house expert. And then Frank jumps up and he's like, oh, you're Zachary, and starts like shaking his hand like furiously and for way too long. And offers him something to eat, but he's like, oh, actually, I don't have any food. And Zachary's like, oh, I've already eaten, thank you. I've had what you say is the breakfast. And I'm like,
how do you call it?
yeah. And so Frank is like, do you have any leftovers? And then starts frisking him. And
let me just get the bacon out of my pocket.
right? And
okay.
Zachary's like, oh, yeah, do it yourself. Like, it's really stupid. Anyway, so Frank finds the leftovers in his pocket and pulls it out and starts like stuffing pieces of bread into his mouth, trying to eat as quickly as he can because he's starving, right?
Sure.
And so then Zachary asks a question, and Frank, the actor, is trying to swallow this bread down as fast as he can so he can say his next line. And I was just like, this poor guy. It's like, he's like, we can't go in the house. Like, it's really stupid. But Zachary's like, I don't want to go in the house. I want to look through the windows. And Frank is like, no, but that shark ate Darth Squanto in one bite. And Zachary's like, who's Darth Squanto? And then like goes and starts looking at the house. And he was like, so why did you become a shark expert? As they're just kind of chatting. And he's like, well, I like sharks, but I hated the ocean. And he's like, oh, you saw Jaws too, right? And he's like, yeah, really fucked mine up.
Gosh.
Yep. Anyway, so they walk around way too long talking about how vending machines kill more people than sharks do, and they're inspecting the windows and stuff, and he's opening the windows from the outside, like, really easily, just, like, opening the windows.
Yikes.
Anyway, they find a shark tooth, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is this kind of a shark kind of a thing, right?
Sure.
And then John's dead body from the inside, like, flings itself out the window. And they're like, what the fuck? And Frank is like, yeah, well, his body was just kind of left in there and no one wanted to go in the house to get it. And I was like, yeah.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Can we, like, lasso him
right?
or something? Like,
so Zachary just kind of, like, pushes him back in and shuts the window. I don't know, man. Anyway, Zachary says he needs to think, and Frank is like, oh, let's go to a bar. So they go to a bar, and that's where Zachary starts asking him, like, oh, so you used to be a cop, right? What happened? And Zachary starts barely telling the story when Abraham runs up and, like, slams his hand down on the counter, and I'm pretty sure was trying to do, like, the nail screechy thing, but it didn't work because he didn't have any nails and stuff, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing, Abraham? So he tells him that he's like, oh, George was supposed to tell you that I was supposed to come and help you and stuff, and then goes on way too long talking about that he's gonna pay Frank to let him help, and it's just really stupid. But then he just starts touching their faces, like running his finger across their faces, and they're like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, I have a condition where I have to touch people's faces. I don't know. So, but that's another running gag throughout the rest of the movie. He'll just, like, randomly be saying something, then reach over and touch one of their faces, and it's, like, it's actually kind of funny.
I wonder if they just, like, gave free reign to these actors. They were like, just say the lines and make up your own shit.
Yeah, just do your own thing. Yep.
Jim Carrey impersonation, great.
Yep, and he just keeps touching their faces and stuff. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so they finally agree to let him help, and they get shit-faced and take, you guessed it, more selfies. And so then they wander back to the house, drunk, talking shit on the shark, and then pass out in the backyard, right? The next morning, Abraham is making coffee and wakes them up by throwing hot water at them.
What?
And then they're sitting on the edge of the yard for a while, and, like, just their faces, which is funny because the hot water got on their legs, not their faces, but their faces are the only thing covered in blisters from the water,
right?
Which go away pretty quickly because, you know, can't do that for the rest of the movie. Yes. And they talk way too long about the plan and what they need to do, and that they need to board up the house because the shark could escape, and they can't let the shark escape because it'll just go to someone else's house and do this again, so they need to kill the shark.
But boarding up the windows is not going to stop the shark that's in the pipes.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, they don't think about that. They don't care. You know?
Well, then they're not experts.
Well, but they ask Zachary, and he says the only way for the shark to get in and out is through the doors or through the windows. So, he's the shark expert.
Okay.
Yeah, don't question. Zachary, the shark expert. Yeah. But that goes on for, they spend so long boarding up the windows. So fucking long boarding up the windows. Anyway, Lady Bird shows up and she's like, Frank, what are you doing? This is suicide. And I was like, bitch, you told him to handle this. Like,
handle it. Don't do that.
He was like, I have to, Lady Bird. I have to take care of this. And she goes, okay, well, when you get out, we'll be waiting for you. And he goes, we? And she's like, yes, we. And then they start making out. No. And I was like, y'all got divorced. What the fuck is going on? Yeah, so then Abraham is like, hey, we gotta get in there, and Lady Bird leaves. Well, then they suit up, and it is a backpack. Abraham with his flask and his crossbow, and Frank with his gun and his sheriff's badge.
So
that's
gotta
them
have the badge so the shark knows who's boss.
Yep.
See.
Yes, and then there is another selfie with hanging with my besties. You know.
Hashtag.
Yep. And then they enter the house and start to look around while Abraham locks the door and swallows the key. And they're like, what the fuck, Abraham? And he's like, I don't want you running away at the first sign of danger. And I think I do a really good Abraham, I'm not going to lie.
Nice.
So yeah, there's that. And they decide to go to the bathroom because that's where the first shark attack happened. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you know. So they walk up and there's still police tape on the door. There's still the blood all over the bathroom. This is like 2 months later.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, I guess if somebody was too afraid to go in the house and clean it. But like, there's still blood and guts like hanging out of the toilet and stuff. And they're like, ugh, right? All grossed out. Well, Abraham decides to sit in the tub and wait for the shark to come and passes out because he's totally drunk. And Zachary and Frank start talking about what Zachary has in his bag, and he pulls out this like ray gun looking thing, and he says that it'll help disrupt the shark but it could like blast a hole in the wall of the bathroom. And I was like, okay, so that's what they're gonna use to kill the shark, right? No, it's not. And Frank is like, all I need is my gun. Ha 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 ha. And Zachary again is like, well, you still haven't told me about why you weren't why you aren't a cop anymore. Yeah. And Frank is like, well, I mean, it's a long story. And Zachary's like, well, we've got lots of time. I've had 3 coffees, 2 no snores, and a Red Bull. And I was like, what is a no snore?
Is that like Adderall?
I have no idea, right? And he was like, so go ahead and tell me. And so Frank is like, okay, well, my partner got called out. And every time he starts the story, it's a different starting of the story, right? Okay. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Anyway, Zachary passes out immediately. And eventually Frank kind of falls asleep as well. But before that, you guessed it, another selfie of him drawing a penis on Abraham's face.
Oh, good.
Because
that's what boys do at sleepovers.
Yes. Anyway, so Frank suddenly wakes up having nodded off, and he was waiting for the shark like everybody else, and decides that he needs to go to the bathroom. And the only place to go to the bathroom instead of the toilet or the sink that's in front of him is the gross, disgusting toilet. Sure. So he starts peeing in the gross, disgusting toilet.
Peeing and not sit down.
Yes.
Potty time.
Oh yeah, no, that would be a nightmare. So he's peeing, and that goes on for so long.
Why do they focus on that stuff?
I have no idea. But like, it's kind of the joke of it because he looks over and he sees the shark like silhouette on the door again, and it's
just like
it's so bad, yeah. And he kind of like turns to look at it and pees right on Zachary. And
oh my goodness.
Zachary replies, "Oh yes, mein Führer."
No, my what? No.
And then realizes what's happening and wakes up and freaks out.
Oh no.
Yep. Anyway, so the peak keeps going for a good while. Abraham suddenly wakes up and Frank puts it away. And so they were like, oh, here comes the shark. But then the shark like vanishes from behind him, and they're like, why didn't it attack us? Well, it suddenly appears behind them.
Right.
And this is the first real look you get to see at the shark.
Okay.
So...
Oh. So that's a green screen, right?
No. It's a suit.
It's a suit?
It's a suit. Yep.
Okay, so it's just like a shark's head suit.
Kind of. It's like the upper torso of a shark, and like it's just...
It looks very bad.
It's very
for the
bad.
record.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it had 2 eyeballs. Like 2 eyes on each side. Anyway.
Oh.
I have no idea. So the shark starts attacking them, and they all freak out and fall into the bathtub. And instead of like shooting at it, they're just kind of like waving their weapons, but they're screaming like, ah! Ah! Like high pitched. I was laughing a little too hard at that. So the shark is like trying to attack them and stuff, but it doesn't, and then runs away. And they were like, why didn't it kill us? And Zachary goes, because that was no house shark. And they're like, what? And he's like, goes on for a while about like naming a bunch of different types of animals it could have been, but like with like household items attached to it kind of thing. Like, that's no plunger orcus or anything. Like, it's just, I didn't even bother to write them down. There was so many.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does the shark have legs?
Not that we can see.
So it swims around on land.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's a new breed.
Or an old breed.
Or an old breed.
That didn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
The land shark.
Yep.
Jenna was right all along.
Right? Anyway, so they, Abraham's like, I know a land shark when I see one, kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, I believe, or a house shark, sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, I know a house shark when I see one. Anyway, so they decide that they need to go to a different room to have more room to fight it because that thing is ginormous. And Zachary pulls out a female house shark costume. And they were like, that looks like a normal shark costume. And he was like, don't you see the apron? I was like,
gosh.
So they throw it at Frank and tell him that he needs to put it on. And while Frank is putting on the outfit, Abraham talks about how he was actually at the parade of houses where all the other people died and stuff. And that it turns out that he was also attacked by the house shark and his arms and legs and head were bit off.
And he survived?
He survived. Yeah, they took him to the hospital and they stitched him up and he was okay. That's why his stitches needed tightening earlier.
Right, I get that. Frankenstein.
Right.
Okay.
And the whole time, though, he says that, Zachary and Frank are like, what?
How?
How's that? That's not possible. Anyway, so then Frank finally gets his suit on and...
Oh.
But he puts the sheriff badge on over the apron.
Oh. Okay, so this is like a Spirit Halloween shark onesie with a pink apron and then like a stuffed shark head mask.
Yep.
Head covering.
Yeah.
Just so everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, I'll post the picture.
I know, but for the pod, you know.
Yeah.
For the listeners at
home. For the listeners. Yeah. Anyway, so Frank is all dressed up and they're just kind of like going off for a good little while talking about more shit. Abraham starts God Bless America and it's I really didn't understand half of what was going on. Anyway, again Zachary asks Frank why he left the force, and so Frank starts talking, but then the shark shows up.
Right.
So
we never get to know.
And so the shark shows up and Abraham grabs his crossbow. But it's jammed, and so he's trying to fix it.
No.
And so Frank has his gun and stuff, and Zachary is like, "Go, Frank, let him mount you," and stuff because he's a female shark. And he's like, "What? I'm not gonna have sex with a shark?" And he's like, "Yes, do it, and then I will put him to sleep and stuff." And he's like, "What?
I'm not that desperate."
Yeah, it's really stupid. But Frank says the tagline, "We're gonna need a bigger house." Yeah. And
it doesn't even make sense.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Abraham finally jumps back up with the crossbow, but the shark is suddenly gone. But it's suddenly behind them, and it pulls out, you fucking guessed it, a laser gun, and starts shooting lasers.
The shark pulls out a laser gun with its fins?
No, it's just there.
It's just like hovering next to it.
It's just there. I'll show you that picture later, but it's like attached to his side, but like there, yeah, it's ridiculous. It is redonkulous. So it fires at them. They manage not to get shot, and Abraham pulls out the crossbow, and he's using Frank as a human shield. And it's just like, shh, die, Frank, die. It's okay. I'll use your body as a shield. And he's like, I'm not dead yet. And he's like, shh, it's okay. Wander off into deep sleep.
Go.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And then Abraham goes to shoot it, and Zachary is like, no, don't shoot him. I want him alive and stuff. But he shoots him anyway, and then the shark swims off. And they're like, what the fuck, Zachary? What are you talking about, right?
Why? We don't want that alive.
Right? In the process of all the nonsense stuff that was going on, they find his backpack had spilled out, and there was a picture of him with a shark in a fishbowl. Oh. And so they're like, you've got some explaining to do, Zachary. And so they've got him, like, not tied up on a chair, but he's just, like, sitting there on a chair. But, like, with his hands behind his back, like, he is tied up. And so I thought they tied him up. Anyway, but he's not. So he's like, well, I guess I can drop my fake accent now. And,
oh, my... What?
So he's not even German. And he explains that he was a scientist and that he was experimenting with plutonium on animals to make them smarter and be able to know how to use weapons and camouflage and hand-to-hand combat but it wasn't working. So he was going to use it on himself to give himself Spider-Man powers so that he could get the babes. Anyway, so he was explaining that when he was trying to use the plutonium, it exploded, and there was this huge blast of radiation that should have killed the shark, but instead it mutated it, and he swam away into a sink.
Right.
So since then, he's been looking for his shark, right? So that he can experiment on him and see what's actually going on, right? They were like, oh, well, the ray gun can kill it, right? And he was like, well, no, the house shark has really good regeneration, and so, like, the ray gun's not going to do much to him. And I don't fucking know. Anyway, so he's like, well, all we can do is I have a syringe of plutonium in my backpack that we can inject the shark with, and that should be enough to make the shark explode. And they were like, how do you know this? And he says, well, I saw it on Godzilla one time.
Do you know how hard it would be to stab a shark with a needle? Mm-hmm. Their skin is fucking tough.
Yeah, it's really tough.
First of all, and this is a mutated shark.
Yep.
Also, a Godzilla movie? Okay.
I have no idea. So they knock him out and put him in the female shark costume and put him in a doggy kennel so that he can't escape, right?
Right.
Well, they've been waiting for so long for the shark to show up. Abraham starts singing an old sea shanty. And Frank is like, oh, this is stupid, but gets in on it too and starts singing. And Zachary's like, oh, this is so stupid, but then he gets in on it singing.
Okay, this is my favorite part.
Yep. And then all of a sudden the ground starts to shake and the shark comes up through the ground to attack them.
Right.
And yeah, so they start shooting at him and nothing was working. And at this point though, like Abraham was like grabbing for anything because he's like kicking the shark away. And he grabs this random guy and he's like, who the fuck are you? And the guy says something in another language, but the subtitles are like, well, the house was empty. I thought I could live here. So he's just a fucking squatter. And
okay.
Frank is over there like, fucking squatters. And Abraham's like, fucking foreigners, and shoves him into the shark's mouth. So that guy gets eaten.
Okay.
And at this point, Zachary grabs the ray gun and shoots the shark with it, and it does nothing.
Right.
Absolutely fucking nothing.
Like we know that it will.
Yes. And so then the shark he shoots him a couple of times with his gun. That, again, does nothing. And the shark grabs the cage that Zachary's in and, like, yanks him away and apparently takes him down the sink drain with him. Because they can hear Zachary calling for help the whole way down into the basement. And they were like... Because physics, yeah. And apparently do what daddy sharks and mommy sharks do. Because Zachary wakes up covered in gross.
No.
And...
yeah.
He wakes up in ew and then decides that he's going to get revenge on the other two because they...
Let him...
Anyway, it was just stupid. But the whole time, though, Frank is like, we gotta save him, and it's dumb. So upstairs, Frank thinks that they need to leave, but Abraham reminds him that he swallowed the key and he hasn't passed it yet. And Frank wonders if Zachary is dead, but then he gets a notification on his phone of Zachary taking a photo of himself in the basement in the shark suit, saying, I'll get those guys if it's the last thing I do. Anyway, they hear a noise, and the house shark starts attacking again, pulling out its laser gun. And they're, like, freaking out. But the boss of the realtor office shows up with a baseball bat. Ooh. Apparently, he had been in the house hiding in a closet.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And so he's, like, whacking the shark with a bat. And they're like, oh, my gosh, boss of the realtor's office. What are you doing here? And he's like, I'm going to do what they do on Jaws and all those other movies. And he pulls out a grenade and he pulls the pin and dives into the shark's mouth.
No, you throw it.
Yeah, but it does nothing. Like, the shark basically just, like, burps up smoke because
he's indestructible.
Because he's indestructible, apparently.
Okay.
Well, in the basement, Zachary has he gets to the water tank and uses it to turn it into a bomb. And he plugs up the drain in the basement so that it fills the whole house with water. So the whole house fills up with water, and it's them, like, walking through the house, but, like, using their arms to, like,
To
swim
wade through the water.
while they're like holding their breath and stuff. And anyway, they get into the basement, and
With
this
their
is
head
like
above water?
no.
Oh, okay, underwater.
Like they're
okay.
holding,
Okay.
but like it's just a blue filter over
Yeah.
the screen, and like
There's no water.
There's no water. Things that are floating in the water, you can see the strings holding them
no.
up and stuff. Like
Oh,
it's really bad. Anyway, so they get down into the basement and they're trying to get the drain unclogged, but then Zachary shows up and starts attacking them and knocks Frank's gun out of his hand and stuff, and they're wrestling for a good while. I skipped through most of this part because
All
it
while
just went
holding
on.
their breath.
All while holding their breath. And then the house shark shows up, and Abraham grabs a baby gate and is holding it over the door frame so that the shark can't get through.
Okay.
Yep. And eventually Frank knocks Zachary out, or like punches him, and manages to unstop the water. And so the water escapes, and they manage to run back upstairs because now the shark is kind of like tangled up and stuff. So they get back upstairs and are complaining that his bullets are too wet to fire, and Abraham only has a couple of cross bolts left. Then the shark follows them upstairs, but they were like, we need to hide, but there's nowhere for them to hide. So Frank pretends to be a lamp, and Abraham pretends to be a table, and the shark just swims past them. But then on its way back, Frank is standing there like a bookshelf, and he's got his arms like crossed in front of him, and the books are just sitting on his arms. And I think Abraham was trying to be a couch because he was holding a pillow.
Oh no.
Anyway, the shark decides to fall asleep, right? It just like passes out right next to him, right? And because Abraham has his condition where he has to touch faces, reaches over and is like about to touch the shark's face, and Frank is like, Abraham, what are you doing? Don't do it. And he's like, I have to. Like,
I have a condition.
and touches the shark's face. Well, the shark kind of starts to wake up, so they start singing Rockabye Sharky in the treetop, house shark, Rockabye house shark in the treetop. And they're like, we'll make you some human steaks and stuff. And then Frank goes on with another verse that I didn't quite hear, but then again they're like, and if that doesn't work, oh no, what is it? Which one was it? What are they
The
singing?
Mockingbird one?
It's the Mockingbird song, not that one. Anyway,
Little house shark.
that's it. That's what it was. My bad. And then and if that doesn't work, or Abraham goes, we'll make you some more human steak. And like, Frank is like, what the fuck? Like,
So just keep him asleep, man.
yep. Anyway, well, Frank drops a book by accident, and the shark wakes up again, but they stand perfectly still. So the shark goes upstairs, and Abraham thinks that he knows, or he needs to learn how to fight like the mantis to fight the shark. So they spend way too long on a montage of him
Doing
mantis shit and push-ups and
to be the dragon warrior.
yeah, and he just like he thinks that the mantis is the shark's true enemy. So anyway, Abraham decides that it's about time to pass the key, so he needs to find a toilet, but they can't use the toilet in the house, so they grab a bucket, and right when he's about to go to the bathroom, the shark shows up, and so Frank is like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And Abraham's like, I'm gonna fight him, and so he goes up, starts mantis fighting him, and it actually kind of is working for a second.
Of
Frank
course.
is like, wow, what the crap? Anyway, the shark eats him, but like it's
Long story short.
long story short, but Abraham's like upper half is like hanging out, but then his legs are right next to him, like hanging out of the shark's mouth, and it's really ridiculous. And just going off for a while about how they need to kill the shark. Well, Frank finds the syringe of plutonium and stabs it into the shark, but it doesn't work. Obviously. And so they're like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And Abraham goes, you need to shoot me. And he's like, what?
Why?
And Abraham goes, I'm more whiskey than blood, because
Oh
he's
my
been drinking
gosh.
from his flask the whole time, right? And Frank goes, okay. And Abraham's like, well, that was really quick of a decision.
Well, and like, where's the logic? I mean, I guess there is none.
There's
you just
none.
throw it out the door.
Yeah,
But
there's no logic. Anyway,
that was
but
quick.
they kind of argue back and forth for a second about how Frank agreed to that really quickly. But then he's like, it's okay, I'll distract him. Well, Frank goes to like shoot him. And Abraham's just like, come here, you son of a... He's inside the shark's mouth while the shark is like chomping down on him, and it's ridiculous. Oh, and I forgot to mention that every time you see the shark, it makes this like sound with his mouth because it's like that's the sound. Yep.
Okay.
Anyway, so that just keeps happening and stuff. Anyway, Frank manages to, of course, take a selfie before Abraham dies.
Smart.
Because, and the selfie says, don't want to talk about it.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so then the shark eats most of Abraham, but his leg is still hanging out of the shark's mouth. So Frank shoots the leg and it explodes the shark.
Of course.
Because
that was what I would think would work.
Yeah, not the grenade that went down his throat.
I'm glad I was right all along.
Yep. So there's this huge explosion, and now they're suddenly in the desert, even though they were in a neighborhood before. But I'm guessing that was the only place they could film a large
explodes?
The house explodes.
Okay. Frank's
still alive though, totally unscathed. He's saved.
Thank goodness.
I guess Zachary's dead though, because you never see him again. But Frank is like, yeah, I did it! Hooray! And then you hear Abraham's voice saying is it bad? And he looks over and moves a piece of the house, and it's just Abraham's head. And he picks up the head, and he's like, how are you still alive? And he's like, take me to the doctor. They can rebuild me.
Oh no.
And so then it's the credits rolling as Frank's walking around chatting with Abraham, picking up his body parts, and there's a lot of dumb nonsense, but the credits are just rolling, and that's the end of the movie.
He did it!
He did it!
Wow. 10 out of 10, man. That was a wild ride.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It's probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
At least, Lizzie Borden's Revenge made more sense than this one did.
Yeah.
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 There was a solid plot line of Lizzie Borden's Revenge.
This one was just throw as many ideas at a movie and see how many can stick. And then all of them did.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that was fun.
Yeah.
I like that. What do you rate it then? What? Realistically, and then on a fun level.
Realistically, it's a 2 out of 10, man. It's so bad.
All the Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh yeah, it's so fucking
none
bad.
Of them technically.
It's so terrible. On a fun scale, I give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So
you need to be a little drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To truly enjoy it and have a real good laugh at it, probably at least be 4 or 5 shots in. So
nice.
Yep.
Okay, that would be fun.
Or be like me in 2 shots and then you're tired
and
and
you
go
fall
to bed.
asleep.
I don't hold my liquor well. Well, I mean, I hold it well. I've never thrown up. I just get tired.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Yep.
Dollar store movie bin.
Yep.
Doesn't disappoint.
Oh yeah, no, it was very good.
I liked it. I thought this was a fun one.
It was a fun one, but it was definitely what the.
I'm excited to watch more of these dollar store movies. And we have, oh my gosh. So for you guys at home, I follow this spooky Halloween page on Facebook that's decor and just anything spooky in Halloween. And so I asked for suggestions for movies we should watch. And there are now 1,400 comments.
Oh my gosh.
So,
seriously?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
so if you came from there, hi, welcome. Thank you very much for your suggestions. So we're never going to run out of movies. Ever.
We're set for life.
A lot of them are repeats, but I'm very, very excited.
Yeah.
So if you're new here, follow us.
Yeah.
And like all the things.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on Stitcher. So yeah. And you can also email us with any other suggestions and comments and whatever at bmoviebashpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
We would love to hear from you.
Yes, please.
And
yeah, like, comment, and subscribe.
Do all the things. We love you guys.
Thanks.
And have a good time.
Yeah, have a good time. Have a good time. Can that be our outro?
Yeah. Have a good time.
Have a good time.
See you later.